Hey guys, it's Yuto here from suchirecipes.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make a melt-in-the-mouth steak rice ball called Chaliapin Steak Don. This dish was made famous by the anime Shokugeki no Soma, or Food Wars in English. Let's go over the ingredients first. This recipe serves 2 and you will need 2 thick sirloin steaks or fillet. I'm using 3 fillet steaks because they're small. 3 white onions, a pinch of salt and pepper, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon of neutral oil like vegetable oil, or you can use beef fat for a meatier flavor. For the sauce, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 75 milliliters of red wine, 1 tablespoon of water plus 1 teaspoon of cornstarch mixed together to make a slurry. And then for the rice, I used 300 grams of cooked Japanese short grain white rice, 3 umeboshi pickled plums, 4 shiso leaves or ooba leaves, and then I garnish with 2 tablespoons of chopped spring onion. So we're gonna start by tenderizing the beef. First, let's pound it to break down the tough fiber in the meat. You don't want to do this too much because if the steak is too thin, it's going to cook too quickly. And we're going to make don, so I want the steak to stay a bit thick. I'm aiming for about 2 centimeters thick, about 3/4 of an inch. Next, I'm going to score the steaks using the tip of my knife. Again, this is to make the meat more tender. Make sure not to cut too deep. I used the tip of the knife so that the cuts are shallow. Just make a diamond crisscross pattern on both sides like this. Our final step of tenderizing is coating the steak with onion. I'm gonna use 1 onion and put it in a food processor to get it very fine, almost like a paste. You can also grate the onion if you don't have a food processor. Onions contain something called proteolytic enzymes, which help break down the proteins in the meat and make it extremely soft. These enzymes can also be found in things like lemons or pineapples. So line a container with half the onion and place the steaks on top. Then cover them with the other half. Make sure they're fully covered. We only want to leave it for 30 minutes. Don't leave it too much longer than this or the meat could become mushy on the outside and dry on the inside. I also recommend leaving it out of the fridge during this time. We don't want the meat to be cold when we cook it, so this 30 minutes marinating period is the perfect amount of time for it to warm to room temperature, and this will make it cook more evenly when we add it to the pan later. So while we're waiting for those onions to work their magic, let's prepare the rest of the dish. I'd recommend using this time to cook your rice. I've just set my rice cooker. I finally chopped these onions by hand because I didn't want them to be mushy. These are to serve on top of the dish at the end. I'm gonna heat a pan on medium, and once it's hot, add 1 tablespoon of butter. When it's melted, you can add the other 2 onions. We wanna fry them until they turn golden. Did you know this dish is named after a Russian opera singer named Fyodor Chaliapin. Apparently Chaliapin steak was created for him when he visited Tokyo in 1936. He had a severe toothache and asked for an extra soft steak, so a chef called Fukuo Tsui created this super tender Chaliapin steak for him. When the onion have softened, add a sprinkle of salt. Once they're golden, you can turn off the heat and reheat them just before serving. So 30 minutes have passed, it's time to cook the steak. First we need to wash it and remove the onion. Make sure you wash it with cold running water. Dry the steak and season it with a pinch of salt and pepper on each side. As you can see, the onions have changed the color of the steak. This is nothing to worry about. You should expect the color to change because of the acid in the onions. Now we're gonna heat up a frying pan. Use a high heat. We want the pan to be literally smoking hot. When it starts smoking, add beef fat or neutral flavored oil with a high smoke point. This is to help crisp up the surface of the steak and stop it sticking to the pan. Once the oil is hot, place the steaks into the pan. We're aiming for a rare to medium rare steak, so I'm just gonna cook this side until it's slightly charred. This will take about 30 seconds to 1 minute or so, then I'll flip it over. Once it's flipped, cook for about 30 seconds and then poke it with your finger. You want the softness of the steak to match the softness of the palm below your thumb when you put your thumb and index finger together. This is called the steak doneness test. I've written about this on the blog, the link is in the bio if you wanna check it out. Once it's done, transfer the steaks to a plate and let them rest. We'll use the same pan to make the sauce, no need to wash it out. So lower the heat so about medium and add 1 tablespoon of butter. Once it's melted and it starts to smell buttery, add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. When you can start to smell the aroma of soy sauce, which is quite immediately, add 75 milliliters of red wine, mix it well and let it bubble a bit to burn off the alcohol. The resting steak should have let out some juices by now. Let's add it to the sauce to make it extra flavorful. Now simmer for a few minutes to reduce it. In the meantime, in a small bowl, mix 1 tablespoon of cold water with 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. This is a slurry and it's gonna thicken up the sauce. We'll turn off the heat and pour it in. Mix well to make sure it doesn't make clumps and set it aside. Finally, we're gonna make the rice. This part is optional because some particular ingredients gonna be used, but it's one of the key features that makes it like the Chaliapin Steak Don featured on Shokugeki no Soma. In my recipe, I'm using shiso leaves too, simply because shiso leaves have a distinct flavor that pairs very nicely with Japanese pickled plum. Next, we're gonna make the pickled plums into a paste, so first remove the seeds, then just use a knife to cut the skin and mush up the inside. It's easy because they're very soft. Pickled plums are also called umeboshi in Japanese. They're very sour, but when it's mixed with rice, it's very tasty. Mix the shiso leaves and umeboshi paste into the rice. The steak, onions and the sauce are very rich and buttery, so the ume adds a refreshing taste. It's really delicious. The last cooking step is to cut the steak. I'm cutting at a slant like this. This kind of cut makes a nice shape for presentation, I hope. Finally, it's time to assemble the dish. If your sauce and onions have cooled down, you can blast them with a bit of heat just before serving up. So I've put the rice in the bowl. I'm gonna start by placing the steak slices around the edge like this. Next, add the fried onions to the middle, pile them up high like the anime did. Drizzle the sauce over the meat. Then finally you can garnish with spring onions for a bit of added colour. And there you have it, Shokugeki no Soma style Chaliapin Steak Don. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recipe, then please hit like and subscribe. We have lots more donburi recipes on our channel, so check them out. And if there's a recipe you're looking for, comment below and I'll see what I can do. Thanks again, hope to see you next time.